Welcome to Minutes with Mango, Life in Motion. I'm your host, Johnny Mango. This is the place where we inquire about lifestyle, culture, and careers. Weekly, we meet with new guests that make a contribution of their insightful stories about their careers and how those careers impact their lifestyle and culture. Hello, everybody. This is Johnny Mango, and welcome to Minutes with Mango. Today, we're going to spend a few minutes with a really interesting guy. His name's Jeff Patterson, and Jeff has been in the martial arts business for a long time. But he's written a book, and he really is got a great background in meditation. And I really want to, hopefully, we can focus on that today and talk about meditation. So, Jeff, welcome to Minutes with Mango.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey, why don't we start off by giving us a little bit of your background and tell us about yourself, Jeff?
Yeah, well, I've been running a martial arts academy and meditation center here in Portland, Oregon for about 31 years. I was introduced to the meditative arts in a bit of a roundabout way in that as a 19-year-old kid, my old boxing coach told me that if I wanted to be a better boxer, I should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. And I remember thinking that, that wasn't for me or anything I was interested in, but I had a lot of respect for him and I started doing the practice. And not only did it help me in the ring, but I started seeing all of these other changes in my life. And through the years teaching the meditative arts here at my academy, I've heard hundreds of stories of how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives. And that's what's made me so passionate about writing my last few books and just trying to get the message out there to help more people with the meditation arts.
Sure. So it was through your boxing career that you found Tai Chi and then on to meditation.
Yes.
Can you describe meditation for us, for somebody out there? What's your interpretation of meditation?
Well, there's 5 different paths of a meditation practice. You can come to the practice for the performance side of the practice, which is why a lot of athletes are drawn to the meditative arts to help improve your timing and your awareness, to help reach those higher levels of flow state. Then we have the therapeutic side of the practice, which is why a lot of elder students come to the practice because it helps with their longevity and their overall energy levels. There's the medical side of the practice, which is great for stress reduction, dealing with illness. All of Chinese medicine is based off of Qigong theory, which has been a meditative practice that's been around for over 4,000 years. Then we have the philosophical side of the practice, which is more of the strategic side of the practice and something that I've always been very drawn to in that it helps expand your peripheral vision so you can see things from multiple angles, and it's always fun and interesting to study. And then lastly, we have the spiritual side of the practice, which is more of the meditative and that internal cultivation side of the practice. And so as you come to the meditative arts, you might follow any one of these paths with your practice.
I think a lot of people, when they hear meditation, they think about the spiritual element of meditation rather than these 4 other elements. So how does, like you mentioned Qigong, how does that, what's the background for that? So I'm a novice to meditation, so I'm trying to understand in the most basic ways how it all works.
Yeah, well, in the meditative arts, you have movement style practices that help connect your mind-body awareness. And it's important because understanding how to connect deeper in the body helps us connect deeper to the mind and to the breath. And so we do that through different movement practices. There's still practices that you can do in sitting meditations or standing meditations. And then we have philosophical practices that are these mental training exercises that we do. Anybody coming to a meditative practice, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing a sitting practice, movement practice like Tai Chi or Qigong or whatever it is, you want to have ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices, because this is going to help you create a foundation and start being able to live the life of a meditation practitioner rather than doing it as a hobby. And really, this is essential to get any kind of benefit of this practice, is that you want to make it a way of life. And I always tell people that with the meditative arts, it's like you're creating an evolving life practice with these different meditation practices. And so we start to uh, build things that help us establish a ritual practice, which is something that we do a little bit of every day. And it's our consistent daily effort towards this practice. And then we have active practices that you can do when you're walking down the street or standing in a line at the grocery store. And these are things as simple as a breathing exercise, or maybe some internal energetic circulations, or maybe some mental training exercises that you're doing in your mind. And now you're starting to infuse your day with these practices and these levels of awareness in the mind, body, and your physiology. And so that way, starting to become one with the practice. And this is the whole idea. And, a lot of times people think that, they don't have time for meditation, and everybody has time for meditation. The Dalai Lama once said that everybody should meditate for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should meditate for an hour. I really like that saying, in that everybody has time. And it doesn't mean you need to retire to a cave and go meditate for the rest of your life. But if you just did 20 minutes a day and integrated some of these active practices, you could see some very big life changes by having a system like this in your life.
So this is, what I'm hearing from you is much different than the perception of meditation, of what you said, the dark cave for a half hour, an hour, or all day, and you're locked up. And what I'm hearing from you is this is something that you're active on throughout the day. You can be active, and there's various ways to do that.
So yes, there are ways to integrate it in through the day, and those are active practices. Your ritual practices are going to be when it's a quiet time, where, you are in your cave, if you will. But
Yeah.
what I meant by saying that is that a lot of people think that in order to be successful in meditation, you need to take yourself out of society and meditate 2 or 3 hours a day. And that's just not the case. If you just did a 20-minute ritual every day, and then some of these active practices, you could get a lot of benefits.
Right. So what does a ritual look like? How would you describe a ritual?
There are many different meditation rituals, and it could be a sitting meditation practice. It could be a movement practice like a Qigong set or a Tai Chi form. It could be a standing meditation practice. The ritual is something that we do every day consistently, and it's just part of, our daily way about how we do things. And this consistency is so important, because through that daily practice, we reach deeper and deeper levels of awareness that come out in our daily activities, which is, kind of one of the main benefits of a meditation practice, is that we increase our level of awareness in everything we do.
So ritual, active, and wasn't there a third one you mentioned?
Yeah, philosophical.
Philosophical. Let's talk about that a little bit. Is that an attitude? What's philosophical?
There's many ways that we can apply these philosophical concepts, and they can be from different mental training exercises that we do to make the mindset shift, or we could do it through different sayings that we work on, memorize, to help expand our peripheral vision and see things from multiple angles. One of my old meditation teachers had me memorize the Tao Te Ching, which is a very famous book, and it's on different things about life and just how to integrate philosophies into life about how to be more peaceful and more in tune and more connected to nature. And it's so important to help kind of understand some of these ideas so we can get a better connection, not only to those around us, but to ourselves. You know, with today's society and everything going on, it's not uncommon that people are walking around with these masks on, trying to, shelter themselves from, different distractions or things that are going on, or possibly even to hide how they're feeling and not show people their true emotions or feelings.
Right.
And we do this so oftenly that oftentimes you'll go and you'll wake up in the morning, you'll go look at yourself in the mirror, and you're still wearing this mask because you're not really staying connected to who you are. And having a daily ritual practice with the meditative arts helps us keep that connection and that root, so we can find those deeper levels of physical, mental, and emotional awareness.
So, what I'm hearing from you is that meditation gives you strength in lots of different ways. Because I think when I hear you using the analogy of wearing a mask, we're hiding from something because for some reason we don't want to be in front of it or a part of it, but we are a part of it. And what I'm hearing from you is that through meditation, it gives us strength, mental strength, maybe even physical strength, but mental, spiritual strength also.
For sure, yeah. And, within the meditative arts, I have these things that I teach my students called the 5 regulations. And these are underlying principles that help any meditation practice, whether you're doing it for like a sitting practice or a yoga practice or a Tai Chi practice. It doesn't matter what meditation style you follow. These underlying concepts are the foundational principles that everyone has to cultivate to reach deeper levels in their meditation journey. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what each of these are.
Yeah,
So,
please do.
regulating the body is basically understanding our alignment and structure, our relaxation and tension in the body, our presence within the body. It's how we hold ourselves throughout the day. And this greatly affects our physical, mental, and emotional well being. If you think about maybe a time when you're lounging in your couch or you're sitting in front of a computer for 3 or 4 hours and your shoulders are rounded forward and you're feeling lethargic and stagnant and maybe your neck's getting sore. And then another time when you're at a party or somebody very important comes over to see you, your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, these two different energetic states we're in 100% control of all day, every day. And so understanding how to regulate our structure and alignment throughout the day and our relaxation and tension and our presence and awareness can take a big play in how we present ourselves through the day and how we come out and how we uh, interact with other people. And a little bit of a deeper level in this body regulation is maintaining some level of muscular structure in the body. And this doesn't mean going out and becoming a bodybuilder. This means having some kind of structure to support the joints, to keep our balance, to help us find root in our movement throughout the day. And then also maintaining some level of flexibility in the body so we don't get stiff and we don't get sore. It helps us to stay more mobile and, age more gracefully. Also on the body regulation is what kind of fuel are we taking in? We want to eat a healthy diet so we're keeping our energy levels up. And then lastly, making sure that we're getting an appropriate amount of sleep. All of these things affect the body and its performance. This is the first pillar and the one that we usually start with new practitioners because it's the one that we'll see the most immediate change from very fast. And so this helps them feel like, yeah, I see the benefits from this. This is going to, make them want to continue to do more. The next regulation is regulating the breath. The breath in the meditative arts is a very complex and deep subject. And in fact, we could talk for hours about this. Qigong is often referred to as the science of the breath because there's hundreds of different breathing strategies. And we use the breath to regulate the energy in the body, to lead it inward, to extend it outward, to circulate it in the body. And an example of these different energies that we can use with the breath, we kind of broadly categorize these breathing practices into yin methods and yang methods. Yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style of meditations that help draw that energy inward. And yang practices are more expansive. They help bring the energy out. They're energizing. And so an example that we all see every day of this is if you ever listen to somebody sleep, you'll notice how naturally they inhale longer than they exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so if we want to emulate this inward energetic expression in our meditation practice, we can lengthen the inhales, maybe have soft retentions at the end of the inhale to help bring that energy inward to get to some of those deeper, more yin states of a meditation practice. Then on the flip side of that, if we want to expand the energy and bring it out, we can exhale longer. We can put tension in the exhale and even make the exhale audible. An example of this would be if you've ever had to push your car or you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is to exhale, and that helps drive that energy outward, which gives you power. And so when we learn how to use the breath strategically, we can use it to control and guide our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And we do this in our ritual practices as well as our active practices throughout the day. Then the third regulation or pillar in this system is regulating the mind. And regulating the mind is a very deep topic and something that you'll be working with for your entire life's journey in the meditation practices. And, one of the most common things I've heard through the years is that people will say, I've tried meditation, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet my mind.
I've heard that too from people. Yeah.
Yeah. And somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be successful in meditation, you have to be able to reach this state of nirvana where nothing bothers you. And they couldn't be further from the truth. Meditation, we all get distracted. I've spent my entire last 37 years traveling around the world studying with some of the most amazing meditation practitioners on the planet. And I've never met one that doesn't get distracted. Everybody does. And so when you're doing a meditation practice, whether it is a sitting practice or a movement practice, and say you get distracted 50 times during that 20-minute session, if every time you get distracted, you recognize the imbalance, you use the movement, your breath, or your posture to come back to focus, you just got 50 repetitions of how to be out of balance and find your center again. And
Interesting.
if you do that every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability to find that center almost amongst any chaos. And so this is one of the ways that the meditative arts helps train the mind to be more powerful. And there's this story of these two old monks who are walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm. And they come up to this big mud puddle that's blocking the street. And on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl, and she's standing there in a white dress, but she's crying. And the older monkey hollers across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monkey rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle, picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles further down the road, and finally the younger monk is just furious, and he says, "You know we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "I left that girl back at the puddle. Why are you still why are you still carrying her around?" And
Uh-huh.
how many times in life do we need to get 2, 3 miles down the muddy road before we realize we got to let that thing go?
How
And
about a
so
thousand? How about 1,000 miles?
exactly. And so learning how to recognize these imbalances and have strategies to guide the mind to a positive outcome is a very powerful part of the practice and one of the foundational principles.
One of the things that I'm hearing from you is that there isn't necessarily a need for perfection as much as repetition and refocus. I think that, I keep thinking about the Buddha is the kind of the imagery of this guy under a tree who's totally focused and never becomes unfocused. And what I'm hearing from you is that's really probably not the way it was, that the Buddha probably had to go through the 50 times to get the focus eventually that he had. It's not a perfect kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, we all are human and everybody has our struggles and we have things that we go through, but having a deep meditative practice can help us stay more balanced and closer to that nature and that awareness all day, every day,
Yeah.
because we have those tools at our disposal.
So what about number 4 on the regulation? I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, number 4 is regulating the energy. And once you've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, you now have the tools to lead the energy in the body inward, outward, to circulate it in the body to get different outcomes. And this is something that we could literally talk for hours about, but this is the basic idea. And so once we have those competent levels and have put the work in on those prior 3 stages, now we can use it to get these different energetic outcomes. And then the 5th and final regulation is regulating the spirit. And this is a very profound idea and something that meditation practitioners will spend their entire life's journey working towards these deeper levels of spiritual connection. But one life example that I like to show people that I think is very closely related to this is in athletics, you often hear the term flow state. And when we can get to that point where we're centered and we're closer and connected to our spirit, we can have these levels of performance that are a little bit unexplainable sometimes, and not everybody can reach on a consistent level because of those distractions and because of those things that throw us off center. And so this is one way how this spiritual cultivation can express itself in our day-to-day activities.
Well, that's all 5 of them. For the typical spiritual practice, the spiritual regulation, and what I'm hearing from you is what you teach are each one of these at a time. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Well, a lot of them we do simultaneously. However, when somebody first comes to the practice, we do spend a fair amount of time focusing on the body regulation because of the speed of the awareness that they'll see through the
Yeah,
time invested.
I see. Okay, so it's more on the front end of that one that I'm here. Let's talk about your book for a minute. Let's talk about the Yielding Warrior.
Yeah. So, my book, The Yielding Warrior, is a concept based off of yielding, which has always been very fascinating to me. In the martial arts and the meditative arts, we use this idea. In the book, I broke down yielding into three main pillars. There's physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. Physical yielding is the idea that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And so now I can respond with less effort. And this has been used in martial arts for, centuries. And this idea now is being adopted in many athletics, in that people are trying to heighten that sensitivity and be more aware so they can perform and they can come up against opponents who are bigger and stronger than them and still get the advantage. And so
Mhm.
physical yielding, in order to be good at that, you need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. Now, it's easy to understand these things, but it's a lifetime journey to really master these skills. But the interesting thing is that from day one, by heightening your awareness and just being conscious of these, you start to see things with more clarity inside yourself. And as we develop and become more in tune with our meditation practice, it doesn't take too long, and we start seeing these things with more clarity in other people as well. And this is where it gets pretty interesting. And now we're moving into what I call mental yielding.
Yeah.
So, say, for example, you and I are having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you, and I pick up on it right from that first sign of imbalance. It's a lot easier at that point to adjust the conversation and keep us on a harmonious path than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. And so learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. Not only is it good for our relationships, but it can be used in business and sales and negotiations. I mean, there's many ways that we can use this in our life, and we do this to lead these conversations to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. And one, this allows us to be more considerate because we're more in tune and we're paying attention. And that's something that we could all do more of. And it allows us to be strategic so we can get to these positive outcomes without a lot of button heads and resistance. And so it's a very powerful concept on that side of the mental yielding. Then the third pillar is emotional yielding. And this is very much like mental yielding, but with your own interpersonal conflicts. So oftentimes things will happen to us and we'll respond and we'll go down this path, and we might get an hour or a day or a week down the road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding and our heightened awareness from having a meditation practice in our life, we're often able to notice these distractions and these imbalances when they first happen that can help us kind of stay back and be a little bit more patient, and oftentimes make choices that save us a lot of heartache later down the road. And so, I've been explaining this idea of yielding now for many years. I've been running my academy for over 30 years here. And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is that yielding makes a lot of sense. In fact, I do yielding all the time. Well, I would agree in that I think everybody does some degree of yielding all the time. However, it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years. I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe most people will go through life and never have any clue of unless they have a practice like this in their life.
Right. You know, what comes to mind for me when I hear you use the term yielding. I've heard the term surrender many times, especially in Eastern philosophy, the concept of surrender, and there seems to be a similarity in how you described yielding. I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just what's kind of perked up for me is that surrender and yielding seem almost synonymous with each other because of their you're taking a break instead of getting into an argument with somebody. You're stepping back. You're you're I don't know if that's the right term or not, but you're giving space. Does it make any sense to you?
Yeah, and there are some connections, but where a lot of people get off track is if they start thinking about surrender or giving up, this is not yielding in that it's not about being passive and giving up. It's
Right,
about being strategic and recognizing the imbalance before it gains too much negative momentum and learning how to guide that imbalance towards a positive outcome that can be beneficial towards everybody rather than trying to prove that I'm right and you're wrong or vice versa.
right.
It helps us take things to find that mutual balance, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah. Now that I think about it, the term surrender has to do more with the higher power concept. From what I've heard from people, that there's a higher power, and so therefore I'm going to surrender these issues to the higher power. Let that higher power deal with it instead of me, which is a whole nother. I don't want to get into that, but that's I think where I've heard the concept of surrender placed in the past. So your book, how does one get your book? How is it?
You can find it on Amazon. You can go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book and just pay for shipping. We'll send you out a free copy of it. Also at the Yielding Warrior, I have all my online programs. You can look into those there as well.
You do have online programs, huh? For
Yes.
people who may be listening and can tap into you, not just being so they can make use of your experience in different ways without
Yeah.
being there physically.
Yeah, and I have right now I've got a 2-week trial that we have on our program, so you guys can check out if you like some of these things that we're talking about. You can kind of see how you could use some of these practices to create an evolving life practice.
Well, very good. Jeff, I want to thank you for today. I mean, this is pretty enlightening and very concise, by the way. I appreciate you taking the time to share with us so much. Anything you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, one thing, if anybody out there listening to this has thought about taking on a meditation practice, or maybe even just tried it and let it slide by the wayside and didn't stick. If you just made the commitment to doing 20 minutes a day and integrating this into your life and being consistent and sticking with that for a year, you would see so many benefits from that I guarantee you'd do this for the rest of your life. So if you have that interest, I promise you 10 years down the road, you'll be stoked you did the practice and you'll see a ton of benefits from it. But you got to get through those first stages, where you're uncertain, you're not really sure what you're doing, and having that consistency and building that foundation could be one of the best things you ever do for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I think people have a tendency to shut down early rather than follow things through, and that's what I'm hearing from you is that come to my program and follow it through and you'll make a life change.
Yes.
Well, Jeff, thanks again for today, and I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us some really important info on
Yeah.
meditation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You have been listening to Minutes with Mango, Life in Motion. Subscribe to hear a new and unique guest each week as they comment on their life's journey and share experiences with lifestyle, culture, and career. You can always find us at minuteswithmango.com.